Your soulmate is packing their bags tonight, the shocking decision they just made. You freeze for a moment because something inside you shifts before anything around you does. You can't explain it. The room is quiet, the night feels ordinary, yet your heart begins beating as if it already knows a secret your mind has not discovered. Somewhere, far beyond your sight, someone is making a decision that will change both your lives forever. You have no proof. No message appears on your phone. No voice whispers your name. But the feeling refuses to leave, and before this night is over, you may understand why it arrived exactly when it did, right now, while you are questioning your own instincts. Another person is standing in front of an open suitcase. Their hands move slowly, almost uncertainly, as they fold clothes they never imagined packing. Every item they place inside carries a memory. Every zipper they close feels like the ending of one chapter and the beginning of another. They pause more than once, staring into the distance, because this isn't just a trip. It isn't just another decision. Something much greater is pulling them forward, even though they cannot fully explain what it is. The strange part is that they almost chose not to leave. Just hours ago, they convinced themselves to stay exactly where they were. Fear spoke louder than hope. Doubt wrapped itself around every possibility. The familiar felt safer than the unknown. They told themselves destiny was only a comforting story people invented to survive disappointment. Then something happened that completely shattered everything they believed. It wasn't dramatic in the way movies often show miracles. No thunder split the sky. No mysterious stranger appeared with all the answers. Instead, it came quietly. A conversation. A forgotten photograph. A song playing at exactly the right moment. A number appearing again and again until ignoring it became impossible. Tiny signs that meant nothing to everyone else somehow meant everything to them. Those ordinary moments formed a message so personal it could no longer be dismissed. At the exact same time, you were living your own ordinary evening without realizing invisible threads were tightening around your future. You wondered why your emotions had become so intense lately. Why certain memories refused to disappear. Why faces from your past kept appearing in your dreams. Why hope kept returning after you had worked so hard to silence it. None of it made sense then, but every unanswered feeling was preparing you for something your heart had quietly been expecting all along. There were nights when you almost gave up believing love would arrive differently this time. Maybe you smiled in front of others while secretly asking yourself if life had forgotten you. Maybe you convinced yourself that timing simply wasn't on your side. You learned how to survive loneliness. You learned how to carry disappointment without letting anyone notice. Yet deep inside, one small part of you refused to die. It kept whispering that your story wasn't finished, even when every chapter seemed to say otherwise. What you never realized was that your soulmate carried the exact same invisible wound. They questioned themselves just as often. They wondered if they had missed their chance forever. They blamed themselves for mistakes that no longer defined who they had become. Every heartbreak left them more careful, more guarded, more afraid to believe again. Yet somewhere beneath all those scars, your name existed long before either of you knew it. That sounds impossible, doesn't it? How could two strangers somehow prepare each other without ever meeting? How could separate journeys slowly shape two people into exactly who they needed to become? The answer isn't something logic explains easily. Some truths reveal themselves only after enough pain has softened the heart enough to recognize them. And tonight, one of those hidden truths is beginning to rise. As they continue packing, something unexpected happens. Their hand stops over one final object lying on the table. It's small, almost meaningless to anyone else. But the moment they touch it, tears fill their eyes. Suddenly they remember a promise they made to themselves years ago, a promise they had almost forgotten. If life ever gave them one more chance, they would stop running from what scared them most. Tonight, they finally choose to keep that promise. Meanwhile, you notice something changing inside yourself too. The anxiety you've been carrying begins to transform into quiet anticipation. You don't know why. Nothing outside has changed. Yet something within feels lighter, as though your soul has already received news your conscious mind hasn't opened yet. It feels almost like standing outside a door before someone invites you inside. You cannot see what's waiting, but somehow you know the door won't remain closed forever. The universe has a strange way of working. It rarely announces its greatest gifts with certainty. Instead, it sends whispers before it sends answers. It creates silence before revelation. It allows confusion before clarity. Looking back, people often realize the signs were everywhere. But while living through them, they almost always feel invisible. That is exactly where you are now. Your soulmate isn't just leaving behind a place. They're leaving behind an old version of themselves. Every shirt folded into that suitcase represents fear being replaced by courage. Every step toward the door represents years of hesitation finally breaking apart. They don't know your face. They don't know your voice. Yet every mile they travel is unknowingly bringing them closer to someone who has been changing at the exact same pace. Still, destiny is never without obstacles. Just when everything seems ready to align, another choice appears. An unexpected phone call interrupts the silence. Someone from their past asks them to stay. Old emotions return all at once. Familiar comfort suddenly feels tempting again. For one terrifying moment, everything hangs in the balance. One sentence could erase the future waiting ahead. One moment of weakness could rewrite both your stories before they ever meet. At almost the exact same time, your own life presents another distraction. An opportunity appears that seems practical, predictable, and safe. It asks you to settle for certainty instead of possibility. It promises stability but quietly demands that you stop believing in something greater. Without realizing it, you're standing before the same test your soulmate is facing from hundreds, or perhaps thousands, of miles away. Neither of you knows the other exists, yet both of you are answering the exact same question. Will you choose fear, or will you choose faith? The silence stretches longer than either of you expects. Every heartbeat feels heavier. Every second seems suspended between two completely different futures. It almost feels as though time itself refuses to move until both of your souls make the same decision. Then it happens. Your soulmate slowly reaches for the suitcase, not to unpack it, not to hesitate, but to close it. The zipper echoes through the room like the sound of an old life finally ending. They wipe away tears they don't fully understand. They take one deep breath and whisper words no one else hears. It's time. In that exact moment, without knowing why, you look up from whatever you are doing. A chill runs through your entire body. The air feels different. Your heart beats faster again. You cannot explain it. You only know that something has changed forever, because somewhere between one goodbye and one new beginning, somewhere between one closed suitcase and one unanswered prayer, somewhere between everything you thought was ending and everything destiny has been protecting, your two paths have finally started moving toward the same place. But neither of you has any idea that before the sun rises, one impossible truth will be revealed, and when it is, nothing you believed about love, timing, or your own future will ever be the same. You never expected tonight to feel different. Nothing in the air warned you. Nothing in the sky spelled out your future. Yet something inside you refuses to settle. It is the kind of feeling that arrives without permission, quietly pressing against your heart until you stop pretending you cannot hear it. You tell yourself it is just another ordinary evening, just another page in a life that has already tested your patience more times than you can count. But somewhere, far beyond what your eyes can see, someone is standing in the middle of a room, staring at an open suitcase, wondering if one impossible decision could change everything, and you have no idea why your heart suddenly beats as if it already knows. You have spent so much of your life believing that timing was never on your side. Every connection that seemed promising somehow slipped away. Every dream that looked close enough to touch dissolved just before it became real. You convinced yourself that maybe some stories were written for other people, not for you. Yet the strange thing about destiny is that it rarely announces itself when life feels perfect. It often begins in silence, inside moments that seem completely ordinary, hiding beneath routines you stopped questioning long ago. And tonight, while you are living your life as you always have, another life is being quietly turned upside down for a reason that somehow reaches toward you. That person has no idea who you are. They have never spoken your name. They have never seen your face. Still, they cannot shake the feeling that staying where they are has become impossible. They walk through familiar rooms that suddenly feel unfamiliar. Every object they touch seems to whisper the same message. Every memory feels heavier than it did yesterday. They pause beside a window, searching the darkness for an answer that refuses to reveal itself. Then something unexpected happens. A single thought enters their mind so suddenly that they almost laugh at how impossible it sounds. What if everything they have been holding on to is the very thing keeping them away from the life they were meant to find? At first, they resist. Who would leave behind everything they know because of a feeling they cannot explain? Who would risk comfort for uncertainty? Who would trade familiar pain for unknown hope? Yet the question refuses to disappear. It follows them from room to room. It lingers between every breath. It echoes louder than reason itself. And with every passing minute, the suitcase remains open, waiting for an answer that feels bigger than fear. You know this feeling, even if you cannot explain why. There were moments when your own heart tried to tell you something long before your mind was willing to listen. Moments when every door seemed closed until one unexpected opportunity appeared from nowhere. Looking back, you realize that some of the greatest changes in your life began with confusion, not confidence. They began with uncertainty disguised as coincidence. Maybe that is why tonight feels strangely familiar. Maybe your soul remembers something your memory has forgotten. Across the miles, that person picks up an old photograph. For a long moment, they simply stare at it. The smile in the picture belongs to a version of themselves that no longer exists. The dreams in that photograph belonged to someone who still believed life always worked according to plan. But plans change. Hearts change. People change. And sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that the life you built can quietly become the life you have already outgrown. Their hands begin to tremble, not because they know where they are going, because they finally understand they cannot stay. Meanwhile, you are sitting in your own quiet world, completely unaware that someone else's courage is slowly becoming part of your story. You think your biggest challenge is surviving another ordinary day. You believe tomorrow will probably look like yesterday. Yet invisible threads are already moving into place. Conversations you have not yet heard are preparing to happen. Roads you have never walked are slowly leading toward each other. Even the delays that frustrated you are beginning to reveal a purpose you could never have imagined. But the reason behind all of it remains hidden, waiting for just the right moment. There is something remarkable about hope. It does not always arrive as excitement. Sometimes it arrives as restlessness. Sometimes it feels like an ache that refuses to disappear. Sometimes it asks you to trust before giving you evidence. And tonight, both of you are carrying that same invisible weight without realizing it. The person closes the suitcase, then immediately opens it again. Doubt has returned. What if they are making the biggest mistake of their life? What if the voice inside them is nothing more than wishful thinking? What if the future holds only disappointment? Fear is convincing because it speaks with confidence. It lists every possible failure before hope even gets a chance to whisper. It reminds them of every heartbreak, every betrayal, every promise that was broken. It paints pictures of loneliness so vivid they almost decide to unpack everything and forget this strange feeling forever. Then the phone rings. They hesitate. One call, one unexpected conversation, one sentence spoken by someone who has no idea how deeply it will change everything. Maybe you've stayed long enough. Silence fills the room. Not awkward silence, sacred silence. The kind that appears when truth finally enters a place where fear has ruled for too long. You have experienced moments like this before, a stranger saying exactly what you needed, a delay protecting you from something you never saw coming, a closed door leading to a better one months later. At the time, none of it made sense. Only afterward did the pattern become clear. Perhaps tonight is another one of those moments. Perhaps the pieces are moving long before the picture becomes visible. The suitcase is finally zipped shut. That simple sound echoes through the room like the closing of one lifetime and the opening of another. No celebration, no certainty, only courage. Real courage rarely feels fearless. It simply chooses movement while fear is still present. As they carry the suitcase toward the door, they pause one last time. The room is exactly the same. The furniture has not changed. The walls still hold the same memories, but they are no longer the same person standing inside it. Transformation often happens before anyone else notices. Sometimes it happens before you notice yourself. Maybe that is exactly what has been happening to you all along. You have survived seasons that should have broken you. You have carried disappointments that few people ever understood. You smiled through days when your heart felt unbearably heavy. You kept going even when nothing seemed to reward your faith. You called it endurance. Perhaps heaven called it preparation, because the strongest hearts are rarely built in comfort. They are shaped in waiting. They are refined in uncertainty. They are transformed by refusing to stop believing even after every reason to quit appears. Outside, the night feels strangely alive. The wind carries possibilities instead of fear. The stars seem brighter than usual, as though the universe itself is quietly witnessing a decision whose consequences have not yet unfolded. The person locks the door behind them. They do not know where every step will lead. They only know they cannot ignore what their soul has been whispering any longer. And at that exact moment, without any obvious reason, you stop whatever you are doing. A feeling washes over you, gentle, unexplainable, almost familiar. Your heart cannot give it a name, but it refuses to let it go. Somewhere deep inside, something ancient begins to awaken, not certainty, not answers, recognition, as though your soul has sensed movement before your mind can understand it. You wonder why tonight feels different. Why memories you thought were forgotten suddenly return, why hope, after hiding for so long, quietly knocks on the door of your heart again. You almost ignore it, almost, because part of you has learned to protect itself from disappointment. Part of you no longer wants to believe that life still holds beautiful surprises.